The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and warm milk, a strange mixture that clung to the walls and seeped into the clothes of everyone who passed through. Outside the maternity ward, the fluorescent lights hummed softly, casting a pale glow on the polished floor. Nurses moved quickly, their shoes squeaking, while new fathers paced with phones in their hands, rehearsing announcements they would send to relatives. Amid this controlled chaos stood a woman whose sharp heels clicked impatiently against the tiles. Her lips were pressed into a thin, unforgiving line, and her eyes burned with a cold determination. She was the mother-in-law, and she had come with a single purpose: to make sure the young woman inside that room understood her place. Inside, the daughter-in-law lay exhausted but radiant, her newborn sleeping quietly beside her. Pain still throbbed through her body, yet her heart felt impossibly full. She cradled the baby with trembling arms, whispering promises of love and protection. That fragile peace shattered when the door flew open and the older woman stormed in without knocking. Her voice cut through the room like a blade, accusing, bitter, and loud enough for nurses to glance nervously from the hallway. "You think you can stay here and play family?" the mother-in-law snapped. "You have no right. My son made a mistake, and you're dragging him down with you." The young mother blinked in disbelief, clutching the baby closer. Her voice was barely a whisper as she tried to explain, to defend herself, to plead for understanding. But the older woman wasn't listening. She pointed toward the door, her hand shaking with anger. "Get out. As soon as you can stand, you leave. Don't expect help, don't expect support. You're on your own." Tears welled up in the daughter-in-law's eyes, not from weakness but from shock. This was supposed to be a moment of joy, of healing, not humiliation. Nurses stepped in, trying to calm the situation, reminding the mother-in-law that this was a hospital, that there were rules. She scoffed at them, insisting she had every right to speak her mind. Her words echoed down the corridor, drawing the attention of other families, their faces filled with uncomfortable sympathy. Then, just as the tension seemed unbearable, a voice from the doorway cut through the noise. Calm, firm, and unmistakably confident. Everyone turned. Standing there was a man no one expected to see in that sterile hallway, his presence instantly commanding attention. He wasn't dressed like a celebrity, no dramatic entrance or entourage, just a quiet authority that made people listen. The mother-in-law froze mid-sentence, her mouth slightly open, words dying before they could escape. The unexpected guest stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on her. He spoke without raising his voice, yet every syllable carried weight. He reminded her that cruelty had consequences, that family was built on compassion, not control. He spoke of dignity, of responsibility, of the irreversible damage caused by words spoken in anger. Each sentence landed like a measured strike, dismantling her arguments one by one. The corridor fell silent, as if the building itself was holding its breath. The mother-in-law tried to interrupt, but nothing came out. Her confidence evaporated, replaced by something close to fear or perhaps shame. For the first time, she seemed to realize that her power was an illusion, sustained only by intimidation. The nurses watched in stunned silence. The young mother stared, tears streaming freely now, not from pain, but from relief. Someone had finally stood up for her. The man turned to the daughter-in-law and offered a gentle smile, reassuring her that she was not alone. He spoke softly, telling her that strength often reveals itself in the most vulnerable moments. Then, without another word to the older woman, he left as quietly as he had arrived. The mother-in-law remained rooted to the spot, speechless, her authority shattered in front of strangers. News of the confrontation spread quickly among those who had witnessed it, becoming one of those stories people whisper about later, shaking their heads in disbelief. The daughter-in-law, though still physically weak, felt a new resolve settle in her chest. She looked down at her child and knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with courage. The hospital room, once filled with tension, now felt lighter, almost sacred again. Elsewhere, under bright studio lights and surrounded by cameras, another confrontation was unfolding that same week, though of a very different kind. Adam Lambert sat on the couch of a popular daytime talk show, his posture relaxed but his eyes alert. The conversation had started casually, touching on music, creativity, and self-expression. But as the discussion turned toward more personal territory, the tone shifted. A comment was made that struck a nerve, dismissive and poorly disguised as humor. Adam's smile faded. He leaned forward, his voice steady but edged with frustration as he challenged the remark. The host attempted to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but the tension was already palpable. Words were exchanged, sharper now, each revealing deeper disagreements about respect and boundaries. The audience shifted uneasily in their seats, sensing they were witnessing something unscripted. When Adam finally stood up, it wasn't in anger alone, but in self-respect. He made it clear that he would not remain in a space where his experiences were minimized or mocked. Without raising his voice, he thanked the crew, nodded once, and walked off the stage. Gasps rippled through the studio. Cameras scrambled, producers rushed, but the moment had already etched itself into memory. Later, clips of the incident flooded social media, sparking debates and drawing lines between those who applauded his stance and those who criticized the disruption. For many, it wasn't about drama, but about drawing boundaries. Just as in the hospital corridor, someone had refused to be silenced or diminished. Different settings, different lives, yet the same underlying truth echoed through both moments: respect is not optional. In quiet hospital rooms and brightly lit studios alike, people are pushed to their limits. Sometimes they break, and sometimes they stand up and walk away. The daughter-in-law would remember the day she learned she wasn't powerless, that kindness could arrive from unexpected places. Adam Lambert would continue his journey, unafraid to leave spaces that no longer honored him. And somewhere between those stories lies a reminder that dignity, once claimed, has the power to change everything. The maternity ward was meant to be a place of beginnings, where pain slowly transformed into hope and where quiet joy replaced months of anxious waiting. Yet for the young woman lying in the narrow hospital bed, that promise felt painfully distant. Her body was still weak from childbirth, every movement reminding her of the long hours she had endured. The tiny bundle beside her breathed softly, unaware of the tension thickening the air. She watched her child sleep, trying to memorize every detail, when the door opened with a sharp, impatient force. Her mother-in-law entered as though she owned the room. Her posture was rigid, chin lifted, eyes scanning the space with disapproval. There was no congratulations, no tenderness, not even a glance at the newborn. Instead, her gaze locked onto the young mother, cold and calculating. The silence stretched only for a second before she spoke, her voice low but venomous, each word carefully chosen to wound. "So this is it," she said. "You think having a baby makes you part of this family?" The young woman's heart pounded. She tried to sit up, wincing, instinctively pulling the blanket closer around herself and the baby. She wanted to answer calmly, to remind this woman that she was exhausted, that this was not the time. But the words came out shaky, betraying her vulnerability. She spoke of love, of responsibility, of the child who deserved peace, not conflict. The response was laughter, short and cruel. The mother-in-law stepped closer, pointing toward the door as if it were an exit from a stage. "You should leave as soon as possible. My son will come to his senses. You're not staying. You're rushing to the wrong station if you think this ends well for you." Nurses hurried in, drawn by raised voices, trying to restore order. The older woman brushed past them, insisting this was a family matter. Other patients peeked from behind curtains, curiosity mixed with discomfort. The young mother felt exposed, humiliated, tears slipping down her temples into her hair. She pressed her lips together, refusing to sob aloud, determined not to let her child's first days be marked by despair. Then footsteps echoed from the corridor, steady and unhurried. A man appeared in the doorway, someone entirely unexpected, his presence instantly altering the atmosphere. He didn't announce himself or demand attention, yet it gravitated toward him naturally. The mother-in-law turned, prepared to lash out again, but froze when she recognized him. Her mouth opened, then closed. The room seemed to hold its breath. He spoke calmly, his tone neither aggressive nor condescending, but firm enough to cut through the hostility. He addressed the situation directly, reminding her that intimidation had no place here, that respect was not something one could demand through fear. He spoke of how power misused eventually collapses, and how moments like this reveal who we truly are. His words were not loud, but they resonated, echoing in the sterile room. The mother-in-law tried to regain control, muttering excuses, but her confidence was gone. Her shoulders sagged slightly, and she avoided his eyes. Nurses watched, stunned by the sudden shift. The young mother felt something loosen inside her chest, as though a weight she had been carrying alone was finally being lifted. For the first time since the confrontation began, she felt seen. The man turned to her, offering reassurance without pity. He told her she was stronger than she realized, that survival often begins with enduring moments that feel unbearable. Then he nodded politely to the staff and left, disappearing back into the corridor as quietly as he had arrived. The mother-in-law stood motionless for a few seconds longer before finally retreating, her heels no longer clicking with authority. The room settled into silence. A nurse closed the door gently and adjusted the curtains. The young mother exhaled deeply, holding her baby closer, whispering a promise that this child would grow up surrounded by love, no matter how hard she had to fight for it. That day would remain etched in her memory, not for the cruelty she faced, but for the moment she realized she was not as alone as she had feared. Across the city, under an entirely different kind of pressure, another tense scene unfolded. Bright lights illuminated a television studio where laughter usually flowed easily. Adam Lambert sat across from a talk show host, his demeanor relaxed, playful even. The conversation moved smoothly at first, touching on music, tours, and creative freedom. The audience applauded, the atmosphere warm and familiar. But as the discussion shifted, a remark slipped out that carried an edge. It was framed as casual banter, yet it landed poorly, dismissing experiences Adam held deeply personal. He paused, his expression changing subtly. The smile faded, replaced by focus. He responded thoughtfully at first, clarifying his position, attempting to redirect the conversation toward mutual understanding. The host pushed back, perhaps unaware of how deeply the comment had struck. The exchange grew sharper, not loud, but undeniably tense. The audience sensed a shift, laughter fading into uneasy silence. Adam straightened in his seat, choosing his words carefully. He spoke about boundaries, about the importance of not trivializing someone's journey for the sake of entertainment. When it became clear that the moment would not resolve itself easily, Adam stood. The movement alone drew gasps. He addressed the room calmly, thanking the crew and the audience, making it clear that walking away was not an act of disrespect, but one of self-preservation. Then he left the stage, the sound of his footsteps echoing louder than any applause. Within minutes, producers scrambled to fill the gap, and viewers at home sensed they had witnessed something real, something unscripted. Clips spread rapidly online, dissected and debated. Some criticized him for leaving, others praised his refusal to tolerate discomfort masked as humor. For many, the moment became symbolic, a reminder that saying no can be just as powerful as staying and enduring. Though the hospital corridor and the television studio could not have been more different, the threads connecting these stories were unmistakable. In both places, individuals were confronted with attempts to diminish them. In both, the choice was made to reclaim dignity, whether through quiet endurance supported by an unexpected ally, or through the bold act of walking away. The young mother would carry her child home days later, stronger in spirit than she had been before. Adam Lambert would continue his career, unapologetic and clear about his boundaries. And in both stories, the lesson lingered quietly: respect is not granted by status or volume, but earned through humanity, and sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is refuse to be silenced.